I guess I started in a building family, grew up in the construction industry, started selling at a very early age in retail. My family also owned a retail business. And so that's kind of where I got my start, so to speak. And I kind of went from there, worked for some builders in the area. Right from the time I went to college, got out, really enjoyed helping people. Got into doing therapy and did therapy for a number of years. And then after about 6 or 7 years of doing that, decided I wanted to get back into the home building business, got into sales. I worked on sales on site for about 10 or 12 years. Went back and got a master's degree in communication because I wanted to move into management, and spent about 6 or 7 years in management before I decided I wanted to go out there and be a consultant, work in that realm. And really the biggest reason why I decided to do all that was I just thought there needed to be some new material out there. A lot of the material I was being trained on didn't easily apply to the situation and sales environment I was in. So that's kind of my thought is I try to come up with new material, with stuff that I've used in the past. A lot of the trainers, unfortunately, haven't been on site in a long time and really, haven't done this type of selling. And internet selling and working with people over the internet is a lot different than face-to-face selling, as you guys know. Okay, well, let's move forward here. Let's talk about some of this information. I just want to cover a couple of objectives with you, what I'm going to try to accomplish over the 2 webinars that we're going to have together, okay? And one of the things here is just development of a lead contact process. What process can you guys go through in order to get better results, in order to make more contact with people, in order to drive the relationship a little bit better, okay? So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to talk about how to write effective emails and leave effective voicemails. Believe it or not, many of us don't do a very good job of that. And I will tell you right up front, when I was working on site, it took me several years of experimenting with different things and reading things and working in the environment that you guys are working in before I came upon some real effective ways to do that. We're also going to talk about keys to effective phone dialogue, the role of positioning, because believe it or not, how you position yourself in this process is critical to your success. We're also going to talk about validating the payoff, what's in it for the customer, the role of storytelling, and the use of strong statements. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to be going through in our 2 webinars that we're going to have together today and on Friday. And how to advance the relationship and getting the appointment and more sales, of course. That's the bottom line. We want to create more sales for ourselves. We should talk a little bit, okay, about internet search data and kind of what we're seeing right now in terms of how people are using the internet. The thing to me is there's a lot of discussion about, who is using the internet, but, who is using it is not near as important as how they are using it. So a couple of polls here I wanted to go over with you. 50% of people do research online before making any significant purchase, and 45% look online before making a significant purchase as well. As it relates to major purchases, though, the Pew study in 2008 found that purchasers use the internet for research and tactical reasons. I'm having a little bit of a technical glitch here. The rest of the screen is not filling up for me. There it goes. Okay. Just had to talk nice to it. The study found, and you'll find this interesting, guys, and this is in 2008, and I think that these numbers have gone up dramatically, in my opinion. 57% of people that were quoted part of the study in 2008 of the Pew organization found that 57% say it reduced the number of places they looked for a place to live doing online research. 54% say it took a video tour of the house, apartment, or neighborhood in which they were interested. 29% say they thought the online information helped them save money and time on the house they bought or the apartment they rented. Okay, so really it's changing the dynamic of how we search and how we buy, okay, the internet is. And of course, we all know this one. The National Board of Realtors claims that 92% of prospective buyers look online before contacting an agent, okay. And I'm sure all of you guys will agree with that, that's pretty straightforward information there, and we all understand that, the importance of the internet. Okay, let's see if we can get the next screen to pull up. All right, guys. Here's the impact on sales. This is kind of what, how the dynamic, if you will, has changed over time. prospects, as you guys know, have access to infinitely more information than just 2 years ago. Okay, and the main reason for the last 2 years is what? Social media. We can all get online, we can communicate with our family and friends, we can interact with others, we can do all those things that we couldn't do or wasn't as big of a thing to do just 2 years ago. Okay, and the other thing is information acquired. I just want to stress this point to you guys. Information acquired doesn't always mean knowledge applied. Okay, just because people have access to a lot of information doesn't mean they know how to apply the information. And many times, I will tell you, they are even more confused than before because of competing claims and information they've collected doesn't always make them more knowledgeable because they don't know how to apply it. You know, they really aren't well versed enough to know how to apply the information. Many times they think they know how, and many times they think they know more than we do as salespeople. Okay, but in actuality, they really don't. Prospects get further down the buying cycle than ever before they ever contact an on-site salesperson, and that is a really, really important thing I want you guys to remember. They get further down that buying cycle before they ever contact an on-site salesperson, and that's really to the detriment of the on-site salesperson because it puts them at a disadvantage because they're kept in the dark the whole time. They're basically kept in the dark right up to the point that they're ready to go and make contact with a salesperson, and they can be further down that buying cycle, like I said, and establish the buying criteria before they ever reach out to the on-site salesperson. This puts that on-site salesperson at a huge disadvantage, okay? So that's why your role is so important, okay? You guys are just critical going forward to any building organization's success. And the earlier in the buying cycle that you make contact with a prospect and develop a relationship, the more influential the builder and the on-site salesperson will be in the decision-making process. Okay, that's really a critical point. All right, let me see. Let's go to the next slide here. Well, I say I am. Okay, I want to spend just a couple of minutes with you guys and just kind of go through the buying and selling process and why that's just so important today. This is a slide that I talk a lot about when I speak publicly and when I go to work with on-site salespeople and internet salespeople, because we have to understand how things are different today. We have to understand the changes in the buying process, because let me just try to encapsulate this for you, because there's so much information, I can't possibly get to all of it in 2 webinars, so I'm going to try to hit the high point. The high point of this is that whoever controls the information really controls the buying process. Back in the day, if you'll look at where this arrow comes in, this is where we used to get people. They used to come into our model home, and we used to give them a brochure and all the information. We were the point and source of information for people. On-site people were. Okay. I remember selling on-site, and and people would have 20 brochures from different builders. And that's the way it was. We controlled the sales process because we controlled the information. It's a really important distinction. And as the internet became more and more popular, and as we put more and more information on the internet, that information started to transfer to buyers, and they started to get more and more control of the selling process. The only thing that kept it down and mitigated somewhat is a high demand for houses. But once that demand's gone away, they've got a lot of control of the process now. Okay. What happens is they can come way down in here, way down where the second arrow is, before they ever make contact with somebody. Now you can see the gray boxes across the top. That's how we buy today. That's how anyone, if you think about yourself the last time you made a major purchase, this is a process you went through. Okay, you had satisfaction, then there was something that happened, something changed. Okay, your automobile, furniture, electronics, whatever it is, and created a discontent with you. Okay. And then you went about doing the things to collect information. You prioritized your needs and wants. You investigated solutions. There was trade-off. You had some anxiety about it. And then you made the purchase, and you went back to being content again. This along the bottom here, this kind of light blue boxes across the bottom, that's the critical path, if you will. Okay? And when we got them down here, we can move them across the critical path. So when they're getting and hitting salespeople in the refined solution stage, again, it puts us at a big disadvantage because we have no relationship with them. On-site salespeople don't have a relationship with them at that point. It puts us at a big disadvantage, and many times it puts us at a point to where we're trying to negotiate without really understanding what the criteria is for their purchase. It creates a lot of problems, and it really hurts sales greatly. And the interesting thing about what you guys do is this blue arrow, this is where you guys can get back involved. Okay? When people reach out to you, a lot of times they're still in this collecting information stage and prioritizing needs stage. Okay? This is a critical point not only for sales organizations but for marketing. You go to organizations that are looking at marketing, we have to get better, organizations have to get better at reaching people at this phase so we can influence them. If we can reach them here, then we can influence them back down when they're ready to purchase. Okay? If we wait till right here, it makes it much more difficult. Okay? Does all that kind of make sense to you guys, how this has changed? A couple of comments, anybody? Does that make sense to you guys? Art, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it actually does.
Christopher? Okay, good. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at. That's how things have changed. And I thought it was important to show you how the Internet and what you guys is such a critical point, such a critical thing that you guys do for the selling process. Okay? Here's our priorities, guys. Here's what we need to be able to do. And based on this information I just showed you on that last illustration is we have to respond to leads immediately. We have to get very, 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 very effective at responding to leads. Okay? And here's an MIT study just to kind of drive this point home, is that this MIT study said leads that are personally contacted within the first 15 minutes are 4 times more likely to be contacted and qualified. What we mean by qualified is this. Qualified just simply means that they are in fact looking to purchase something. Okay, that's what it means by qualified. So when you think about it, if you're on the Internet, you're spending probably 15 or 20 minutes or more searching and looking at things that you're doing research on and collecting information on. So if someone can get right back to you very quickly, the impact is tremendous. Okay, and look at the next bullet point here. Internet leads contacted 1 hour later are 10 times less likely to be contacted and qualified. Okay, 8 hours, 21 times, 24 hours, thousands of times. So it is critically important that we reach out to people as quickly as possible. Okay, so now I will put a caveat in there. With builder leads, it's a little bit different because I call them warm leads. I mean, they've kind of raised their hand already a little bit. Okay, so some of these numbers might not be quite as extreme, but I will tell you that the companies that I've worked with that have gotten really, really serious about responding to people within 15 minutes have seen their Internet sales jump dramatically. Okay, I will tell you just a little background about myself again. When back in, I think it was 2002, 2003, Richmond American, I was with Richmond American as a sales manager. And they were one of the first, I'll give them a lot of kudos that I'm aware of, they were one of the first to really get involved in the Internet and using an Internet salesperson. They called them a community advisor. Okay, they were really one of the first to really get really good at farming leads, taking the leads, getting the information, calling them, and following up with them and driving that traffic out to the on-site salesperson. And then about 2004, 2005, I left to go to be the VP of Sales and Marketing for William Ryan Homes. It was about that time that Big Builder magazine did a big spread on William Ryan Homes and how we went about collecting web leads and how we went about managing them and how we went about responding to them. And the key for us back then is response times. So response times probably is the most critical thing you guys can do that can directly impact your success as online salespeople. Now there's some variables to this I'm about to get into, okay, but I just want to stress to you how important it is to respond quickly. Okay, there it went. Okay, just some initial response to inquiries, okay? First of all, we've got an autoresponder, and you guys have an autoresponder, okay? It responds, instantaneously to someone that puts in information. That's a great first step, and this is what your autoresponder right now says. The only thing I underlined here is just a misspelled word. I would suggest whoever's responsible for that go back in and that can get in there and correct that. We want something, of course, that sentence structure is done well and not any misspelled words in it. But this basic autoresponder is fine. But the key after that, again, is a personal response or a personal email. And let's talk a little bit about how that would work. Now, for today, I'm going to exclusively talk about what I would define as A leads. Okay? Every organization has their own way of defining what an A lead is. And I'm not going to go into how you would do that. There's going to be a slide later where you actually classify each lead, and I'm sure you guys do that as they come in. A leads, I'm sure, are those that have a telephone number and maybe some other information. Okay, whatever it is that characterizes A leads, it's important that we respond to them with a personal response within that 15 minutes. Okay, let's talk a little bit here about voicemail, because most of the time, I understand, and I sold. When I was in college, I sold Wildcat oil shares over the phone. In different times in my career, I've sold software over the phone. I managed the call center, so I understand the things that you guys are going through. And I know that when you get a phone number that's on there, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good number. You know, it could be 99999, or it could be some fake number, which a lot of times is one digit off what the real number is. But in those times where you do reach a voicemail, always leave a voicemail, okay? And that's what this slide talks about, that on average, 4% of the time, someone will call you back. And more importantly, if you leave a good voicemail, you establish a positive relationship with that prospect, so much so that when they do respond, they'll be really positive in their response to you and their interaction with you, okay? It kind of sets the stage, a good voicemail will, for future conversation, okay? Now, there are some keys to leaving effective voicemail that we're going to talk a little bit about, okay? You have the first 5 or 10 seconds to gain the prospect's attention. I mean, how many times have you guys, I'm sure, just like me, if I'm listening to voicemail, if I hear who they are, and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 seconds in, if what they have to say is not interesting to me, I hit delete, okay? I don't listen to the whole voicemail. I get a lot of voicemails, and I just don't. And a lot of people that are busy out there behave the same way, unfortunately, okay? So initially, the best approach is to communicate with the prospect your role, the problems you address, and not focus so much on selling a home, okay? It's really important that you communicate what you can do for them, okay? Additionally, provide relevant examples and success stories of times that, you know, that will create interest and establish credibility. Like I just saved the customer a lot of time trying to find a neighborhood that meets their needs, okay? That is really a great approach to say, hey, identify who you are, what company you're with, the role that you're going to play, and a really quick example of how you helped other people. That is a really effective way to leave a voicemail, and because today people are focused on the challenges, as I have here in bold. People are focused on the challenges and goals and barriers to success. Okay, they have an idea what they're trying to accomplish, and if there's something that you can offer them to help them overcome those challenges and meet those goals and overcome the barriers to success, you're going to get their attention. Okay, the worst case scenario is they don't call you back but are immediately receptive when you finally do connect with them live. All right. Once the dialogue is established, and more specifically, you can address their problem, the more likely they will call back. So here's a different dynamic for you. Initially, you're trying to establish your credibility. You're trying to establish that you can be someone that can provide them with information they need to make their choices, to help them through the process. That's what you're trying to establish yourself as, someone that is a contributor, someone of value that they can look to. Because, see, they can get all the information in the world on the Internet. They need someone that can help them sift through it, okay? But once you do establish a dialogue and you get some emails going back and forth or phone calls going back and forth, that's when you need to get real specific, okay? That's where the relationship changes from you defining your role and then selling them on the process down to where you've got to get very specific and helping them find the home that they're looking for. Okay. Let's talk a second about email. Okay. I want to first emphasize to you guys what email is not, okay? And unfortunately, we've become a real email-driven and text-driven, instant messaging-driven society, and I would put all those forms of communication into this bullet point, if you will, this series of bullet points. Email is not high-impact communication, okay? It is not. It's a great marketing tool, but it's not a good tool for communication. Matter of fact, it's a poor medium for dialogue. You can't really create dialogue with email, and the main reason why is it doesn't convey emotion or intent. Okay, it conveys information. You can provide information to people, but if you're wanting to have a dialogue, don't do it because it doesn't have the emotion or the intent involved in it. Okay, and up to 75% of emails get caught in spam filters anyway. Okay, the bottom line I want you to understand is emails do not create relationships, and people buy from people. Okay, it's real important that we really reduce our reliance everywhere we can on using email. We want to use it sparingly. And I'll give you a rule of thumb here that I may not get to in our next webinar, but here's kind of a rule of thumb for you. If you send an email back and someone responds, okay, and they ask a question, don't email them back at that point. If they're asking you a question, they're wanting dialogue. That's when you pick up the phone and call. If they are asking for information, okay, and hopefully you guys got pen and paper handy. I forgot to mention that up front. If they're asking for information from you, then by all means give them the information and then call them. Okay, that's kind of the order. If they email you back and they ask a question, don't answer the question immediately back with an email. You pick up the phone and you give them a call. Okay, because remember, it's about a dialogue. It's about a relationship, and you can have influence as long as you have a relationship. It's a lot harder for someone to go some other direction when you provided them some. You guys, something you've all heard of, the rules of reciprocity. That really plays into effect here, okay? So when they ask a question, you pick up the phone and call. When they request information, you give the information and then call, okay? Really important thing to do in the process, okay? And you will find when you do that, people will be very receptive to that. Just one caveat to that, okay? If they ask a question and you pick up the phone and call, okay, and you get their voicemail, we'll answer the question in your voicemail, of course, and then go back to your email, send them an email answering the question as well. You want to use both at that point, okay? And another little caveat, anytime that you ever have a dialogue with somebody, anytime that you and I talk on the phone, you talk with a potential prospect on the phone, always follow that up with an immediate email. Okay, just saying, hey, I enjoyed our conversation. This is what we covered. If there was any action items involved, there was anything that you were going to do for them, say, this is what I'm going to do for you next. Okay? Okay, it's real important. That's how we start that dialogue, particularly with a classified leads. Okay. Okay, the keys to some effective email. Let's just run through this real quick, okay? First of all, make sure the from address specifically and immediately identifies who you are. Okay, there's a trick that you can use. You can go into Outlook. You can also Google this on YouTube, how to change your from address. Okay, you can actually go into it, and it'll say, you can change it to where it's just your name, or you can change it to, it'll say Miranda Holmes in your name, or whatever else you want it to say. But it needs to identify who you are because people will look at that first. Okay. And make sure your subject line, now this is a really good thing, is relevant and not filled with email blocking spam-sounding words. And you guys know what those spam-sounding words are, like new incentive, discount, closeout, all those kinds of things. Don't put those in there, okay? But do put something in the subject line that really is relevant and identifies the subject matter, okay? Because that's what people will look at, all right? All right, and then be sure your content is personal, relevant, timely, and not easily found elsewhere. Let me back up and talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to ask you guys to give me some feedback on what we've covered so far. By all means, write some questions down as we're going, and I want to entertain a couple of questions with you before we go to kind of in the next section here. Okay. Be sure your content is personal. Based on the information that you've gotten so far, if there's anything in there that would lead them to believe or let them know that you have read the information that they provided, I would include that, okay? The other part of that is try to seek out, based on the information you got from the lead, and you guys are all experienced salespeople, try to put information or links or something in there to information that you feel like they might need, okay? It's really interesting, the dynamic of that when you start providing them with some additional information and you're making some assumptions about things that they're going to need, the response that you get back from people, okay? And it's also very effective to, at the bottom of that, to include an action item or a question. You know, you guys know what kind of questions to ask. Ask those questions, an action item. Be sure you guys take a look at this. Be sure y'all have a look at this website. You know, be sure that you take a look at this plan. Those kinds of things that you can use as an action item. Okay? Now, always give a call to action. All right? The call to action can be, at this point, in the body of the email, an incentive. Okay? It can be a story and say, hey, I would like to help you accomplish the same things that I've helped, you know, my other customers accomplish. Okay? Have to be a call to action of some kind. Just be creative there, okay? Because the last bullet point is our initial goal is to get a response. Just get a response. That's all we're looking for at this point, is just to get a response. Okay? All right. What I want to do here, guys, is just stop real quick here and ask if anyone has a question in general about what we've covered that I might be able to answer for them. Because we have an hour together, so we have some time here. I spoke really, really quickly. As you can tell, I speak really fast. And I want to stop here, though, and give everyone an opportunity to make a comment or ask a question.
Okay, Mike, do you
Anyone
have
has one?
examples
Go ahead.
of good subject lines? I mean, right now,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, good subject lines. That's a really good. It depends a little bit on where you're at in the relationship with them. I mean, you could say something like, you know, per your request for information, something like that. That can sometimes be a little bit of a spammy phrase, but based on the fact that they sent information, I think that can be very effective, and I've seen that to be very effective. So something along those lines, you can put your Miranda Homes and your name. That can be very effective, okay, because a lot of times people are curious about that. You know, the thing we want them to do is we want them to open the email. The other thing that you've got to keep in mind, okay, when you're doing this is that, and I'm sure all of you do this as well, I have on my Outlook, I can't remember what it's called, but you can see the first 5 or 6 lines of the email. It's preview pane, okay, the preview pane. So not only are we up against, when we're sending emails out, someone to open it, in those first 2 or 3 lines, we need to say something in there that's going to move them to take action to go ahead and open the email or to read the rest of it before they delete it. So if you put Miranda Homes in your name, then the first line or 2, you're kind of defining who you are and what you do, and I think that could accomplish the task. Okay?
Okay.
Hey, Mike, this is Jim Marshall.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I had a question on the subject line. I get a couple of basic different types of leads. One is they click on for information through BDX, and it's just kind of a general information. And usually I respond with a subject line, the information you requested, and often wondered if that was something that was getting caught in a spam filter. But that sounded similar to what you had suggested. Is the information you requested, does that sound like a good lead-in subject line?
Yeah, if it's quick, I think that's a good lead-in because people remember that. There's also, and I'll forward this on to you guys, there's also a website that you can go to that you can actually, it'll actually analyze the email and let you know where the points of potential spam filter catching is.
Perfect.
Great.
The other one I use is the answer to your question. Whenever I get a chat lead, they normally have asked a question, so I felt like there was, the subject line saying the answer to your question would be something that would catch somebody's attention and think, well, obviously I asked that question, but I often wondered if maybe that was a ploy that was used that was being caught by spam filters.
I agree with that. I think you can do that. I also wouldn't hesitate putting your name in the subject line, and the reason why is names rarely get caught in spam filters. And the other thing is that whenever they go back to try to find an email, if you think about how emails are stored, a lot of times people are looking at the subject matter and who they're from, and so sometimes it's very quickly to get back to that. So I like that approach too. You might just experiment and see what responses work best for you.
Hey, Mike, it's Dominic. When you say put your name, you're referring to Miranda Homes, the name of the home builder?
And you can do both. You can put Miranda Homes dash and then your name.
Yeah, I typically put
line.
Miranda Homes in the name of the subdivision that they're requesting information on.
That's even better. The more specific you can get along those lines, even better.
Yeah, like when based on the different types of leads, we get, our top lead source is BDX, or New Home Source, so typically they're requesting a brochure for a specific community, or they're, one level deeper, and they're requesting it for a home within the community. So I always put in the subject, Miranda Homes at Emerald Lake, and if it's for, say, the Montclair model, I just put a dash Montclair model. So I sort of address exactly what they're asking for in the subject line. And that applies to probably over 95% of leads or prospect leads, whatever you want to call it. So that always worked well for me.
That's excellent. And honestly, I don't know your process too much on how you get leads, so it's a little hard for me to comment on. But what you just said is the perfect way to do it. The more specific you can get in the subject line, the more unlikely it'll be caught in spam filter, because you're not using spammy words the more specific you get. So anytime you can be specific in the subject line, you're much better off. Anybody else so far? Questions? What about selling the process? What are you hearing me say there? What do you think I mean by sell the process, not a home?
Well, just to sort of address what our objective is, and we're in experimentation mode as well. We've been at this for about a year now, and I think we've made some pretty impressive gains. But we've kind of really approached it as certainly not a hard sell. So I think we're in line with what you're trying to explain the process to be. We really want to provide service, and just to kind of borrow the coined phrase, the concierge. We really want to be, a place where our online customers know that they can come in a not so pressured environment where we can provide information and address a multitude of items for them. So for me personally, that's how I try to come across, certainly in my initial reply. Make sure that they understand that is who I am to them, and do the best that I can. Most of the times I don't get phone numbers, so I have to try and articulate it in the form of an email, and that's the objective.
I think you're right on the money. And that's exactly right, and that's what I mean by selling a process. You want to sell your service to them, basically, okay? Because the bottom line is you can't get a credit card number over the phone and send them a home through the mail. You have to get their buy-in that you're going to be a contributor to the process and that you have expertise almost as an advocate, okay, to their home search in order to get the buy-in that you need in order to have influence over what they will consider in their home search. So yeah, you want to get buy-in into the process that you, again, you are the contributor to it, and you have expertise to help them kind of sift through all the information that they need to sift through. And you spoke a little bit, and I think this is a perfect segue into it. Here's just an initial email that you can use, and I've seen several really good ones. This is just one that I created off the top of my head the other night. But I am Miranda Homes concierge for Cincinnati, Ohio. I know finding a home can sometimes be overwhelming. My goal is to simplify the process and be a one-stop shop for all information you need to find the perfect home. I'm not a salesperson, but I've helped countless Miranda homeowners save time and money. Don't hesitate to contact me, blah, blah, blah. Little hook on the end. I look forward to assisting you in search for a Miranda home. Oh, don't forget to ask me about the Internet special we're about to post. And again, this has the pieces that I have found over time to be very effective. It tells who you are. It establishes what the process is. It establishes what your role is. It gives them a reason to call you back. So something along these lines is what I have found over the years of doing this. It works very effectively. And not only does it work very effectively with A leads, it works very effectively with B and C leads. Okay, because you'll get a response a lot of times from this kind of stuff. Okay, so you said the word concierge, and there it is. And you can use an advocate online. The biggest thing I would tell you, though, it's not so much the title as it is the tone that you set in the email. You can still be Internet. I've seen one of the most effective Internet salespersons I've seen is in Houston, and she is Internet. Her title is Internet salesperson. Now, all of the other stuff that she communicates to people is not as a salesperson. It's something totally different. It's a process person. Okay, so you know, it's more about the service you provide versus the title you have. Okay. Okay, so let's continue forward here. Let's talk about phone calls for a second, okay? And really, honestly, this is probably the other most significant area that I've seen and helped Internet salespeople really improve, just again, from my years of selling online, I mean, over the phone and doing this in the field and working with people to drive them back out to my community. There's some psychology behind this, okay? And, of course, we know some of this just kind of instinctively from our experience. I just kind of want to define some of that for you. The first 15 to 30 seconds of the phone call, also known as engaging, is the most important. During that time, people make a decision in their own mind whether they're going to give you information or not. I mean, they're very quick to do that, and they make assumptions very quickly, okay? And they draw conclusions very quickly, okay? So unless you reach someone, and more specifically, unless you reach the prospect within 15 minutes, the prospect will also be unreceptive or emotionally closed. So if you're not getting to them with a phone call quickly, and you have a phone number, and you're not getting back to them quickly, when you do get them later, they could be unreceptive, okay? All right? They could be emotionally closed. Let's say you don't attempt to call them until 4 hours after you got the lead, and you call them. They might, at that point, be a lot less receptive than they would have been less than an hour from the request for information. Okay. The big thing here is that if you do reach them later, again, you know, don't try to go into any kind of logical arguments of any kind, or don't try to persuade. And I don't think any of you guys do any of that. I think from what I can tell from my interaction, it's been very professional and very straightforward. Because the thing is, you don't want to get a prospect in a flight or fight mode. Okay, that's just, and a lot of times they'll do that because we've all gotten sales calls, you know, and what we feel are sales calls. Okay, so we don't want to create that emotional response. You remember, if selling is all about emotion, the first thing we want to emotion we try to elicit from people is trust. Okay, and that's whether you're selling on-site or selling over the phone. You want to come across in a relaxed mode that you're somebody they can trust. Okay, they don't reject sales calls. Customers reject sales calls. They don't reject solutions. Okay, so again, if you're positioning yourself as someone that can help them find a solution, you're much less likely to be rejected, and you're much more likely to have a continuing dialogue with them. Okay, the subtleties and the execution of the subtleties really matter, guys, when it comes to what your role is. Okay. All right, in fact, first identify yourself, your role in the process, the reason for your call. This approach creates an environment where you reduce the customer's anxiety, ensures the customer is open and receptive. talk about this a little bit more. All right, here's just some keys to some effective phone calls. All right, and I'm going to throw some questions in here that you can ask people that'll help you with some of that too. And in our next Friday, in our next meeting, I'll have a series of more questions and other things that you can actually, techniques you can actually use if you're not already using them, okay? To improve the level of information captured during discovery, think about these factors, okay? Avoid focusing on an agenda that typically results in closing conversation. And we all know that that's kind of a basis of sales, okay? Always ask open-ended questions, and the ISCs who fail to ask open-ended questions will find the customers resistant to investing in the whole discovery process. They may go halfway with you, but they won't give you quite as much information as they would if you would approach it a little bit different with a more open approach. Okay, therefore, you'll be unsuccessful in discovering a real dissatisfaction. That's really the key to selling in this type of environment right now, where they have all the information. We really need to get down to what the key dissatisfaction is. Remember that buying cycle that I showed you? It starts off with discontent and dissatisfaction. That's the motivator. Okay. And I will tell you guys many times, even as a former therapist and working in sales, a lot of times the initial dissatisfaction is not the real dissatisfaction. It's the thing that got them to call you. Doesn't that make sense? You know, they may be unhappy, and that the reason might be that mother-in-law is going to move in with them, and they need a new home. Okay. They may not say that. They may come to you and say, we've had a change in our family, or we need a 4-bedroom instead of a 3-bedroom. They may not really get into telling you initially what the real dissatisfaction is, what's created the real discontent. Okay? Open-ended questions help you get there. I find a lot of salespeople spend an awful lot of time, both online and on-site, working with people without really understanding what the real dissatisfaction is, and then they find themselves in a position where they're losing the sale to someone else because they didn't clearly provide a solution that clearly met the dissatisfaction, even though they had the solution. Hopefully that made sense. Okay? So instead of asking the closed-ended questions like, how many bedrooms and baths do you need, or where do you want to live, ask more open, discovery-oriented questions like, what have you seen you like so far? And that's a really powerful statement, whether it's on-site or whether it's on the phone. When you talk about them, you define what you're doing. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen you like so far, guys. You know, what have you looked at so far? Where have you been so far? Okay, just get them to open up a little bit. How has your home search gone so far? Okay, have you just really focused on the internet right now, or have you actually been out and looked at homes so far? Okay, so find out where that, remember that slide, that illustration about finding out where they're at in the buying cycle. These are key things that will help you identify where they're at in the buying cycle as well. It'll also help you figure out what kind of lead they are too. Okay. Why are you looking for a home now? I've asked this question a lot to people. You know, what's changed now for you guys that's got you out looking for a new home? What's happened? You know, and really, if you kind of defined your role, asking that question is very logical, and people will tell you. They'll say, well, you know, we've just decided that we want to have another child, and we want to go ahead and get a bigger house. You know, so they'll tell you, or they're pregnant, or whatever the reason might be. They'll tell you why now is the right time. And here's a question, guys, that's kind of on the end of this. It's not an open-ended question in the traditional sense. It's a yes or no kind of question. Has anyone helped you understand the financing process? You know, the reason why I ask that question, it's a yes or no question, but I call those transition questions because no matter how they answer, it allows you to continue the discovery conversation. Because if they say, you ask, has anyone helped you understand the financing process? And they say, yeah, you know, I think I understand it. You know, then you can say, well, what have you guys done so far? Where are you at in that process? What have you been told? Okay. If they say, well, no, I say, well, can I take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about it, or can I get someone to follow up with you and call you so you can be more informed about financing issues? Okay. Most of the time, I find people will say, yeah, let's tell someone to call me. Okay. Now, it's changed a little bit because a lot of people nowadays, because of the the market are doing more and more. They're looking to their bank first before they start looking because they really don't know if they can qualify. So it's moving the other direction a little bit, but still there's a large portion of people out there that haven't even looked at financing yet, or just kind of looked at it online but haven't really talked to a live person about it. And you can see the power of this because it automatically continues a dialogue, and it automatically gives assignments, and automatically allows you to provide them with information. Really important questions you can ask right in there, okay? And there's others too. If you focus your questions on learning about the prospect and what alternatives they are considering and where they are in the buying process versus the factual information you need to collect, you will greatly enhance your success, your chance of success. Okay, and that's another good thing when I say here what alternatives they are considering. That's another question that I frequently tell people to ask. You guys, you've told me that you need, this, and this is why you're doing it. Are there other things you guys are considering? What other options are you considering to solve a problem or to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish as a family? And they will tell you. Sometimes they'll say, well, we've looked at a short sale, or we've looked at foreclosures, or we're even considering a remodel. That's really important information for you guys to gather, because once you go to hand this person off to an on-site salesperson, all this information you've collected like this will greatly improve the conversion rate once they get out there. And we're going to talk about that on Friday, that handoff process. There's a technique and a trick to that I found that will really improve the success rate and the conversion rate for the on-site salesperson. Okay. All right. And this is just a one-liner here at the bottom, and this is so true, and I know you guys will agree with it. If the dialogue ends, so does the sales process. If we're not talking to them, the sales process is not moving. Okay? If we're not exchanging information, the sales process is not moving, and that's the key. We want to continue the movement of the sales process, and the only way to continue the movement of it is continue dialogue. Okay? Let's stop right here for a quick second. What do you guys think of this information? Any questions about this part thus far? Okay. All right, good. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, let's continue on then. I think we have a few more slides left here.
Hey, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Are we going to get a copy of all this? I like some of those questions on there, and I'd just like to have a version. Are we going to get a copy in email after this? Or?
Yes. Matter of fact, I was going to talk to John about that. If he wanted me to provide just send the PowerPoint out, and that way it can be emailed, and you guys can just print it down.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
You bet. I don't have a problem with that at all. So I'd be glad to try to help you out where I can on that. So, okay. Okay. Why demonstrate concern? Again, this is a little bit of the psychology coming into it. Okay. Again, that's part of my background. Is prospects have, unfortunately, they have the perception that salespeople that we're all completely self-serving, and we really don't have the customer's best interest at heart. So when they don't know why you're asking certain questions, they will assume the worst and very likely not offer any valuable information. And let me stop here and back up and say something about why it's important to define your role. And I missed saying this, it's a really critical point earlier. It's interesting the dynamic going on right now from prospects with all the information that they have, okay, and there's a paradox going on. And if we don't address it up front, then they get this perception that we really don't want them to have. And I guess where I'm trying to go with this is if we don't define our role, okay, in the relationship, as salespeople, internet salespeople, they will define the role for us, okay, based on past experience and their perception. And based on past experience and perception of most people, that role will be defined as negative. Okay, so that's why it's so important that we define who we are, what we're going to be doing, and what our role is in the process for them, because if we don't define it, they will. Okay, so again, demonstrating concern is part of defining that role. All right. Therefore, it's generally helpful to let prospects know why you're going to ask questions before you actually do. Now, it's not appropriate every time, But I will tell you, a lot of times it's a good policy to use is to say, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about your home search so far? It'll really help me deliver the right information to you. Okay. That communicates kind of as I said here, an other-centered reason for asking. It's not self-centered, it's other-centered. You're there trying to provide them good service. And it helps you understand exactly what you need to be doing. Okay. Another way to demonstrate concern is to acknowledge not only what the customer is saying, but what is being implied. For example, if the customer say, we haven't found anything we like, instead of saying, I'm sorry to hear that, ask what's making it so difficult for you. One of my favorite questions of all time is, how is your home search going for you so far? That's one of my favorite questions of all time. And because no matter what they say, it's a yes or no question. It's a closed-ended question in a way, but it leads you somewhere no matter the answer. If they say, no, it hasn't gone well, then you can say, well, what's made it so tough on you guys? You know, and maybe there's something I can do to help. If they say, yeah, it's gone real well so far, then say, well, great, that's exciting. Tell me a little about what you've seen that you like. It sounds like you found some things that are interesting to you. You see what I mean? So either way you go, you're going to get a continued dialogue there. And it's going to lead you right into some discovery. Great question. And I got that, I think I learned that from Bob Schultz, many years ago. A variation of that, I believe. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep rolling, guys. Okay, here's just kind of like an encapsulation of what we covered so far. Just some three really simple rules to sell more. And it's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of us salespeople is don't sell, okay? Don't sell in your head, okay? Prospects like us have experienced pushy, confrontational salespeople. Therefore, the key to connecting with them is to act the opposite. So instead of pulling on the rope and trying to force the prospect in your direction, just drop it. Just drop the rope, sell the process. Okay. Communicate that you have saved customers lots of time by helping them narrow their search for a home. Seek permission to ask about their home search. Complement their search process. Speak in a relaxed, non-threatening tone. But the big thing is their discovery. Okay, we've got to ask and learn more about them. Okay, the really people that are top salespeople, internet salespeople, are really good at getting agreement to the next easiest step in the process, which is a discovery conversation. Some reps make the mistake in the very early stage of asking only about needs. Okay, instead ask about their home search and their current dissatisfaction. How's it going? What's got you guys to the point where you're looking at a home? What's changed? What information can I provide you? How can I help you? You know, all those kinds of things. We need to really get down into discovering why they're searching for a home. And I use this term. What are they trying to accomplish, fix, or avoid? So think about that. When you're sitting there on the phone talking to someone, think about, okay, what are these folks trying to accomplish, fix, or avoid? That's a good framework to be in when you're talking to people. And then they can decide to drop the rope and move to the next step. Believe it or not, you will find a lot of success in that area because, again, you know, people are looking for someone to help them find a solution. Okay. The other thing is do your homework and let them know that. Let them know who you are. When asking for the opportunity to discuss and learn about them, demonstrate that you have unique knowledge and expertise in a variety of areas that affect home purchase process. Let them know that you are informed about energy efficiency. You're informed about finance. You're informed about all these different kinds of things. You have knowledge about that, okay? Because what buyers want is they want an expert. They got all the information. They need an expert, okay? They need someone that really can add some expertise and help in the solution finding process, okay? This not only ensures instant credibility, it demonstrates the ability to contribute to their home search process in a way that is unique and meaningful. Contribution, you've heard me say this a couple of times now, contribution is a key. If they can see you as a contributor, then they will value, the family will value you in the process of finding a home. And that's really key. We've got to elevate ourselves to someone that's someone of value to the home search process. Okay? Really key. A key word is contribution. Contribution. Keep thinking about contribution. How can I contribute? Just real briefly, guys, here's a little bit about lead classification. I know you guys have a CRM system. I have developed over the years a system, a follow-up system, if you will, called Opportunity Management. And it basically develops action items and touch points for A, B, and C leads. And obviously, that's not what we're going to be talking about. I just want to let you know that that I can certainly help you on some of those areas in the future if need be. The CRM system is critical to the management of leads, but what I have found is a lot of folks don't know what type of communication to use in which lead classification first, what order to send them in, what is the structure of those communications, and all that information I've developed over years of doing this. So if the opportunity comes up, we'd love to share that information with you guys in the future. But it's real important, too, to develop a lead classification just to manage your time. And you guys all know that. You get lots of leads, and you have to have a way to categorize them so you're not spending, so you're spending the appropriate amount of time on the appropriate leads. Points to remember. Okay, we're going to kind of do a review here real quick, and then, again, I want to open it up for a few minutes of just discussion and questions and feedback. Okay, points to remember. Your ability to quickly respond to their requests will have a direct bearing on your success. Again, don't forget the MIT study, all right, and my own experience. And I can give you many examples of response time being the key to someone interacting with and creating a sale. Customers today, by the way, just expect a quick response. And when you don't respond, they will eliminate you from consideration. Okay. Personalization is vital to creating a dialogue. So quick response is key to getting their attention and qualifying them. Personalizing is the next key in order to developing a dialogue with them. All forms of communication should have singleness of purpose. And what I mean by singleness of purpose, it's kind of depending on where you're at in the process. The purpose of any communication will be one single outcome, one single goal. Initially, it is to get a response. And the next, when you kind of go with the next stage, continue a dialogue. Okay. Then the next one is moving the sales process. Then the fourth one is getting the appointment. Okay. So kind of each phase as you're moving through, if you can think about it, you kind of want to think about 4 stages. Okay. And the communication you need to do to move them through each one needs to really have a single focus to it. Okay. It's almost like a single sales objective, if you will, for each phase. Okay. As you guys already know, the internet is playing a larger role in how, why, and who buys. And I'll tell you a quick story real quick. This is interesting. I was talking to a group of on-site salespeople. We were talking about the role of the internet, and he was telling me a story that they were doing a purchase agreement with someone, and the grandfather, they were in Texas, the grandfather was, I can't remember where, back on the East Coast somewhere, and they actually did Facebook time. And they used their iPhone, and there the grandfather was sitting on the corner of the desk in an iPhone. And it was really an interesting, I'd never heard that before, but that's kind of where this is all going, where we not only have single buyers now, we have more buyers that we have to consider. This is a lot of the problems that on-site salespeople face. They have to not only sell the person in front of them, but there's more buyers involved. Grandpa's involved, and mom and dad are involved, and other people are involved that you have to sell to as well. That's really how the internet's changing how people buy, you know, and how sales organizations have to react. Best-in-class internet sales departments are contributing 20% plus in total net sales right now. Last year it was probably 14 to 16%. Today it's over 20. And there is an equation that I can use based on the number of leads that you guys get. I can kind of tell you how many should be scheduling an appointment, how many should convert to sales. I don't know those numbers from you guys, so I can't benchmark where you're at against other organizations, but I can tell you in general, when it comes to just net sales, 20% plus from the best organizations out there. And there's some that are claiming to get almost 30%. So, and there's a lot involved in that, by the way. What this is basically saying, though, let me comment on this too, is that we as sales organization and sales people, we have to be as much prospect focused as we are customer focused, right? I mean, you guys are on the front line of that prospect focus part. And the sales organizations that are really gotten committed, both from the marketing side and the sales side, of being prospect focused right now, that are running toward it. And I view you guys, based on my conversation with John, the things that you guys are doing to generate internet leads, y'all are running toward this, okay, to be prospect focused, all right? So that's a really great thing. And the organizations that are doing that, I think, are kind of they're really going to ride the wave of how the internet's changing how we buy. Okay. Social media has changed how we obtain information. Instead of seeking information, the information seeks us. Decision making has become more social in nature. I just talked about the iPhone, person on the iPhone. And as you guys probably are aware, being involved in the internet, the analytics, Google Analytics are changing. What's going to start happening is we're going to use a lot more push technology, so that based on your search criteria and how you search on the internet, the different type of banner ads will come up. For me, I'll tell you that's absolutely dead on correct, because I do a lot of stuff on the internet looking at builders and looking at different things, and all the banner ads, all my Google searches, what I do a Google search, are builder related, because I do so much builder searching. So information is going to be seeking us, okay, and that's social media is going to be a big part of that in the future. So in general, okay, another point to remember is company marketing sales departments that focus on reaching prospects earlier in the buying cycle will have more influence. That's why your role is so important. It's critical that if you can build those relationships and reach them early on and have a way to do that early on, you're going to have more influence as they work through their buying cycle. Let me just say also one thing in here. We looked at, and we'll get into this next time, but I want to comment on it real quickly. One of the things that I would suggest that you do is develop a series of letters. Okay, you may already have them, of stock email letters. And how I usually suggest is I put them in a Word document about different subjects or even about different subdivisions that you send information out. And I save them in Word documents, so I can quickly open a Word document if someone's asking information about something. I can copy and paste it right into my email and send it out immediately. You can add the personal, usually what I recommend is adding a personalization to the first line, because that's what people see, and then sending that out. Using that type of approach, you can create a lot of emails, and you can return a lot of emails with a personalized line on the first line only. That's all you got to do, and you can respond much more quickly that way. Okay, and you can influence people early on that way. Okay, one more slide here, guys, and then we'll open it up for a few minutes of just question and answer. Okay, just from a procedural standpoint, this is kind of how you can kind of look at this process, okay? Your role really is not to sell a home, but to sell a process. Position yourself as an advocate, okay? Immediately respond through your autoresponder, which you're already doing. Respond within 15 minutes everywhere you can. Define your role. Start a dialogue. Create a positive emotion regarding the company. You really didn't talk about that, but that's kind of self-evident. Create a positive emotion regarding the company. Establish a foundation of trust, credibility, and rapport. Remember, the first emotion we want to try to them to experience is trust. Okay. Establish your value by contributing to the buying process. A relationship will determine the degree of influence. Okay. Discover the reason for the dissatisfaction. What are they trying to accomplish, fix, or avoid? Why is now the right time to buy? Confirm the next step in the process. Schedule an appointment with an on-site salesperson. Okay, let's open this up for a few questions here for about 5 minutes or so. And let's see if you guys have any questions I can answer for you. Let's see here. Let me see, make sure everybody's off mute. Okay, yeah, we got most folks off of mute. Any question, guys?
No, nothing on my end.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
All right, well, I wanted to ask, can you hear me, Mike?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Tom from Tampa. I just wanted to ask, is there, I've been running across a difference in kind of, I guess, etiquette with different age group buyers. As they get younger, they tend to find, it seems like they tend to find, direct voicemails to be a more invasive, a more invasive thing. At least that's true
with my 20-something children and stuff like that. They're very comfortable with texting. They're very comfortable with internet chats, that type of thing. But to personally call them, they have a problem with that. And so what I'm wondering is, how do you discern from an internet lead which type of buyer you've got? I understand that certainly the phone call allows the open-ended questions that emails do not allow, and so it's effective when you've got the right person on the other end of the line. How do you discern which, what you've got, judging from the internet information that you have?
Well, that is an awesome question, and most of the comments I've had in the slides that we've gone through today are general in nature. I mean, there's issues pertaining to baby boomers that, a lot of times baby boomers still use email. I mean, that's their main form of doing and communicating with people. So you'll get a lot more responses probably from boomers than you will from anyone else when it comes to email. Okay. Generation X and Generation Y, they're texters. They love to text. And I don't think there's any problem with texting. You can communicate a lot of the information that you want to communicate through texting. At the same time, though, once you send the initial email and you're having an initial conversation with you, if you can define how they want to be communicated with, I think that's the role. It's really hard, like you said, to determine from the information you get from the lead their preferred mode of communicating. But very early on, if you can define that, you can just ask a question, I'm here to provide information to you. How do you best receive that? How do you want me to send that to you? And that can help define that. I'm sure that's what you're doing. But like you said, it's really hard to see if you got a Generation X, Generation Y, a millennium, a baby boomer, or what you got. They all want to, will want to communicate a little bit differently. Okay. But the principles are still true. If the text messaging goes back and forth, if you're getting a lot of that, I would, at every opportunity that feels comfortable to you, pick up the phone and call and dialogue that way. Because it's funny, even though texters like to, or Generation X and Y, they like to text. As a matter of fact, sometimes I wonder, what we're creating, a generation of texters that really don't know how to communicate. But I think as salespeople, once we start getting beyond information and exchange and text messages, we start losing control of the relationship. They have control of it then. So every time that you can pick the phone and talk to someone, it establishes your control still of the process a little bit more. So even though that's how they prefer it, I still would pick up the phone every time you can.
Hey, Mike, I got a question. This is Jim in Jacksonville. I get a lot of leads where I can see that the chat person from our chat service has tried to get a phone number, and a lot of times I try to get the phone number, and just like Tom, I find that there's a lot of people that are very hesitant to give you the phone number because they'd rather have the anonymity of the email. I would much rather have a phone conversation with somebody because I don't type that fast, and I can talk much faster than I can type, and I agree completely with the whole emotion and connecting with people, and I've had most success when I've been able to talk to people, but sometimes it seems to be really hard to get the phone number. Are there any tricks that you can give us for getting people, things that we can say that will give people, put them at ease and make them more likely to give us their phone number so we can make that contact?
Well, I will tell you that the best thing that I've seen so far, and it's been duplicated over and over again, is establishing your role. What I find is people are hesitant to give who they perceive as salespeople the telephone number. If you establish your role early on as someone that's more of an information provider, they're a lot more likely to give a telephone number. I had a couple of salespeople even comment after a week of really getting good at emailing their role, their number of phone calls they've gotten has dramatically increased. Not only were they given the phone number, but they're picking up the phone and calling the salesperson. So believe it or not, that process of defining your role and letting them know that you're there as a helping person, as an agent or an advocate, really facilitates them picking up the phone or them giving you your telephone number.
Okay,
that's the biggest trick.
I did pick up on that statement you made in your sample email that I'm not a salesperson, and I like that because I'm one of those people that when somebody calls me on the phone and I think they're a salesperson, I'm just trying to find a way to hang up as quick as I can. So that's
Sure.
Appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, and like I said, you can't sell over the phone. You can't send someone to get a credit card number and send the house. I mean, you just can't do it. So,
Right.
anybody else? All right, one last slide here, guys, and then I'm going to let you go. I know we're right at we're a few minutes over an hour, but I want to just give you a little. Believe it or not, I'm going to give you a little homework assignment. I hate to do it to you.
Come on.
Yeah, come on, I got things to do. But really, this is just what you're probably going to do anyway. Your little homework assignment between now and Friday is just write your own personal introductory email. I showed you one. I'm going to send you the slides. Remember, it should contain information about you, your role, how you've helped others, a question or reason to call them back. Okay, write a voicemail script. You know, just one that you can kind of internalize. Remember, the script should quickly say who you are, the company you work for, the purpose of your call, the role you play, and the reason to call you back. And just use both over the next 2 or 3 days until Friday. And then I just want to hear some feedback from you guys on how that worked for you, and we can just kind of take that from there. Okay, really kind of a homework assignment, but not. I think you're probably going to do these things anyway. But I just want to make sure that you guys get out there and do that between now and Friday so we can have some conversation about it. All right, guys, I really appreciate everyone's time and attention today. I'm going to email this out to John, also with my contact information. So if anyone has any further questions, they can feel free to email me or call me directly, and I'll be glad to help you in any aspect of this or any other question. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you on Friday.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike.
All right.